Hi there, my name is Areeb. I'm the career growth specialist at Integrify, and today's topic is succeeding in a job interview. This video we will cover specific topics as to what are the emotions, what are the feelings that are going through when you're actually conducting a job interview, how to ensure that you succeed in an actual job interview through different best practices, through different sort of examples of interview frameworks that you may consider using that will help you actually land an offer itself. First things first, first impressions always matter, right? When we speak about first impressions, there are three different things. So, the non-verbal cues, if you're in front of the camera, making sure that you are formally, or well, relatively formally dressed, and making sure that the lighting is good, and with non-verbal cues, how much you are looking, into the camera, when you're talking, and if it's a face-to-face interview, how much eye contact you're making, how much you're able to smile, right? So all those specific aspects, smiling, using your hand gestures as a indicator of feeling a little more confident, and emphasizing certain things when you talk is important to become a good speaker and to ensure that your first impression to the interviewer is positive. Second thing is communication. We will dig deep into several different aspects as to how to break down your responses and how to communicate effectively in the interview, because communication is key when it comes not only to the workplace but also to succeeding in an interview. Voice shift. So a lot of mistake, a lot of error I've seen with candidates in the past is having a monotonous voice where they do not emphasize certain words as much, and where they fail to kind of highlight or they fail to understand how the attention of a speaker varies, right? So voice shift is crucial when it comes to an interview, because there will be kind of ups and downs, and you want to keep the speaker, you want to keep the listener, sorry, and the interviewer interested in your words and basically in your experiences as well. So what are the different frameworks? One of the key frameworks and common frameworks is the STAR framework, right? Giving a situation about a particular example about a situation that you did, followed by a task, how you managed to complete that task, what are the different steps that you took, uh, what is the main outcome of that task, right? What is the actual activity that you were able to perform, and what was the result, or was the outcome of that task? What are the different learning methods that may apply to the specific role as well? This framework is something you would definitely want to stick to throughout your entire interview process, but specifically the first rounds and the second rounds of the interview. Interview tip one. So, what we will cover today is three different interviews tips that will give you a very holistic framework as to how to succeed during an interview. First things first, don't treat an interview like an interview, right? Um, the only downside towards this is that most interviewers and employers, they're not natural, right? So they're not going to be as friendly as as your friend, as your connection, or as other interviewers, right? So however, most of the interviewers are quite friendly. They really want to engage, they want to understand your background and where you're coming from. So what you can do is, you know be proactive and take part, have a conversation with the interviewer. If you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling that you won't perform in the interview, don't treat it like an interview. Treat it like any other conversation that you're having, except that it's more, of course, a bit more professional, and you're trying to communicate your strengths to the employer. Take a narrative approach, right? The interviewer really wants to know where you come from, what's your background, how have you ended up in this place, and why would you like to work for the company, right? And everyone is going to have different examples, but having a narrative approach really sets you apart from people or from candidates who will just list their strengths and try and say that, okay, their strengths or their sort of expectations already match the role, which is why they should be given a job, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's not as easy as that. So you really need to explain, what's your background, what's your main motivations for the role. And this comes to actually having a clear roadmap. Something you can stick to is your resume. So you can use your resume as a reference to sticking to a particular roadmap when talking about experiences and projects that you did, and voluntary experiences and career shifts. So you can use that as a clear roadmap. And the other part is asking questions. So the interviewer might actually give you an opportunity to ask questions during an interview. Most commonly it's towards the end of the interview, so have them prepared as well. Second part is taking a proactive approach, right? So an example is, how's your day going? And this question can be at the very beginning of an interview. Now a very common thing is to just say good, quite okay, tiring, but here I am. So you're not as proactive, and your first impression, right, first impression matters for the first 2 to 5 minutes of the interview. You're not being proactive, you're kind of being on the back foot here. So instead of doing that, why not be a little engaging, show your emotions, show how you're feeling, and say that, a bit slow, but I'm excited for today. Or you can even say, I'm a bit nervous, in fact, for today. I was preparing for this interview for a long time, but I'm a bit nervous, but I really want to chat to you. I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have in the next for the next 30 minutes or so. uh, you can even say that you're doing a bit of research about the company, right? You can say, I was reading and listening to an article or a podcast that was recently published, and here are some of the key findings, and this is why I'm quite excited to be a part of this company. Um, you can be as proactive as possible, and my suggestion would be to do that. The interview tip 2 is really understand what the interviewer is looking for. And based on my experience as a recruiter, when I've recruited several people at startups and at university consultancies, my experience from this is three different elements. The first element is likability. The HR, before actually pushing you or shortlisting you to the next round, they will ask during the interview and after the interview, have they liked you as a person, right? As an employee that they can see at their company every day, interacting with other colleagues. So they need to really assess, are you a fit to the company? Likability, do I like you, right? Second thing is proficiency. Can you do the work? Uh, Very, very simple. So if it's for a technical role, can you meet the different languages or frameworks of the task that you're required to, code in, for instance, or for marketers, it could be, do you know a particular skill that will help you to excel in the marketing role that we are providing for you? And differentiation to some extent, how are you different than among other candidates? And this can go into you having to do a lot of research, you actually putting in the investment to presenting solutions to the firm, that okay, here are some challenges that I really know already that your company is facing, and these are the steps that we can take to achieve that. Advanced skills. So as we discussed, how to be more likable, since likability is typically the most important element out of all those three, is to know your own value, right? uh, know your own value as to what are your strengths. How would you excel in the role? How would you go on about actually proactively leading the role? Secondly, to actually listen actively, right? You want to listen to the interviewer before you actually state your answers and kind of rush towards your answers. So listen actively during the interview. Tell stories. So use a story narrative framework where you tell about different examples, about different challenges that you faced in the past. They will be able to kind of empathize with you on your journey if you use stories, right? They already know your CV, their resume. They've already looked at that. Now they really want to know what you can provide to them as a company. Why exactly should they hire you as a person to fit into the role and to make high impact changes? So telling a story, what it really consists is emphasizing the bigger picture, right? So start by acknowledging the question. You can say thank you for the question, and you can say, this is how I intend to answer it, for instance, and you can then structure the different ways of how you intend to answer it. Using examples, using a narrative approach. If it's a situational question, or if it's some other example that you really know how to answer it, so then go for structuring and then using particular examples. The most important thing is actually having a strong conclusion, so tying the answer back to the question and then signaling why are you the right fit for the role, right? You want to emphasize, you want to always come back to the role itself and emphasize why would you be considered the best fit for the role. So how to really portray this? Telling a story involves three different elements. Is actually painting the picture, so looking at the bigger picture in terms of what the company's challenges are, and from there going into the specific details. And even if they ask you a classic question like tell me about yourself, right? It's about painting the bigger picture first, so about your background, and then going into the more specific details like the technology and the know-how and how you intend to succeed in the role, and then wrapping up, so actually then tying it back to the role and why are you interested in the role, and so on. The third interview tip is anticipate the questions, right? This is something we covered in the previous video for preparing in a job interview, uh, but a roadmap and a structure for the answers. And these are the most four typical the common questions that really come. Tell me about yourself. Why are you interested in this position? Why should we hire you? What are your strengths, to this role? These are four questions that will come throughout any interview process. And if you don't face any of these interview questions, you might face a slightly different phrased one. So if you practice for these questions and you come up with 1.5 to 2 minute responses, plus you write bullet points before actually practicing your answers in front of a mirror, in front of a voice, recorder, or in front of a friend. You definitely want to list the different type of things you want to mention, and then practice and practice and practice. Um, for the interview tape, of course, the preparation counts as much as you being able to succeed. You can't succeed without the actual preparation required for it. So set a roadmap, set a structure for all these answers, and you will be able to understand what makes you fit for the role yourself. And then the questions to ask at the end. The questions depict a lot of things. They kind of indicate your passion and your enthusiasm for the role. So typically, what I sort of see faulty in candidates is they don't ask enough questions, or they don't ask the right questions towards the end of the interview. So most commonly you can ask up to three questions, but these are the four different categories where you can pick and choose the questions from, right? First is performance. You might be thinking, what does performance consists of? You can ask performance like, what are the different KPIs in at your company? How do you measure the performance for my role at the company? Or how would you know that I've been successful at the company in the next 3 to 4 months, for instance? So performance is a very strategic way of actually asking your sort of competence and your efforts in the team and how it is measured throughout the team. Second is team orientation. So how is the team like? You can ask that. You can ask also that will I be reporting to senior members of the team more often? How many people are there in my team? It's more of a smart question. You candidates ask that when they really know what kind of a team, what kind of a company they want to get in. The third is culture and training. You can ask about, how supportive are you with your employees at the firm? What kind of a work life balance do you accommodate to? Do you provide, training resources or training efforts for people to upskill at your company? So that tells you a lot about the culture and the type of training that they have. Fourth is the interviewer in themselves. So you can ask a question to the interviewer back, like, how did you find out about this company, and how has your journey been at the company yourself? And they will be very, very keen to talk about and give you, in maybe 2 to 3 minutes, that how has their journey shifted and what have they liked most. And they might even cover some things about the cultural training. They might even cover some things about the team orientation aspect. So it's a very nice route to talk to the interviewer themselves. And then finally, a thank you email goes a long way. So in the thank you email, again, you indicate the passion that you definitely want to work there. You thank them for their time. And in the thank you email, of course, can be as straightforward as you sending a thank you email with just one or two sentences. I would highlight that uh, slightly go for a different aspect, go for a different perspective. You can send them a recording of yourself and you can thank them, right? It can be as simple as a Loom video recording, actually just thanking them for the time at that for allocating the 30 or 45-minute time to you for the interview, and that you're looking forward to the next interview. And in particular, you can highlight one or two aspects that you found really intriguing during the interview from the interviewer themselves. It could be about the company or about the interviewer, or generally what kind of a mission or vision in the next few years they're aiming for. The more you put, the more sort of uh, collaboration you would have, and the more investment, the more kind of invested you will seem in the company, and the company would appreciate that. So the employers would get a bit better impression of you if you do send them a thank you email. But that's all for now. Make sure to follow us on social media, and if you have any other suggestions for succeeding in an interview process, please let us know. These are the main common things that we covered. So the main key takeaways from this presentation is to understand that the hiring managers and employers are hiring you for your likability, right? So how likable you would be to the employees, to the co-workers, to your potential co-workers. Secondly, the differentiation. So the differentiation, how best you would fit the role, how do you stand out to the other candidates that are interviewing for the process. Um, and the third thing that was mentioned during this was the proficiency, right? So actually the competence, can you actually do the work? So main key takeaways are actually from the second interview tip: communicating all the time your values through concrete examples.